Welcome back to the Casting Call cEDH podcast. I'm Blake.
I'm Chase, and today we're talking about whether or not Blue Form's actually the best deck in the format.
Now, before you all lose your minds,
And go, you're fucking stupid.
yeah. Okay. So first of all, this was not Chase's idea. This was my idea. So any hate directed towards me. But, dude, no. The reason that I had this idea was I was looking at I wanted to do some like statistics because I've really been enjoying watching like cEDH TV, and I feel like they're constantly looking at stats and they're just going in and looking at stuff. And I wanted to kind of compare the Invitational this year compared to last year and just kind of dive into what we've seen from the meta like as a whole.
Yeah.
And so for like those of you that don't know, and especially if you don't keep up with like tournament cEDH as much, so we just had the TopDeck Invitational. It was the 65 best, like the players that had like the highest rankings on the leaderboard. So essentially like the 65 best players in our format. And surprise, surprise, Blue Form won.
Yeah.
It did win last year as well, but it won this year.
Not only did it win, the Final Four pod was nothing but Blue Form.
It was all for Blue Form.
And exactly half of the top 16 was Blue Form. So
Yeah.
video's over. Blue Form's the best. And that's the only thing that we have to go off of.
Yeah.
Because everyone already knows.
Yeah. Okay. Look, here's my logic here. Okay. And I get it. I understand that this take is going to be crazy, but I think, and you feel free to disagree. We can turn this into like a debate type video, whatever we want to do. We're just going to rock and roll with it. I think that Blue Form is the best right now because we have decided that mid-range is where everything is going to sit. Like, obviously, I don't think any deck in the format is going to be able to outgrind this deck. Even decks that say, hey, I'm a control deck. I think that Blue Form just has that ability to just continue to grind later and later and later and later into the game because they can just accrue so much value. The card quality is better than any other deck that we have in the format. But last year, we noticed a big difference where, like this year, no Rog size made it into Top Cut.
Wow.
But we had a ton of Rog size representation last year. Actually, 2 of the 4 decks that were in the top 16 from last year, or in the top 4 from last year, were Rog size.
Yeah.
And I want to say going into that game, number 1 and number 2 overall, I think number 1 and number 2 overall were Rog size. I could be wrong, but I can't remember for sure. Let me pull up just so I'm like not lying to you. But so this is the metagame breakdown. So going into Top Cuts, Rog size was number 1 and it ended up being number 4. It was Andy Beach. Andy actually made it back to the finals of the Invitational this year as well. So I mean, he's just really, really, really good pilot. But yeah. So, and then if you look at the actual like metagame breakdown from that event, there were 11 entries from Rogsai, of which 5 made Top Cut. Blue Form only made 4 Top Cuts last year in the Invitational, and there were 15 entries. So it had a 26.66 conversion rate. Rogsai had a 45.45 conversion rate with 11 entries. So they had less entries than Blue Farm and made more Top Cuts. Even cEDH had 10 entries last year and had 3 Top Cuts, so a 30% conversion rate. Tivit had a Top Cut last year. You know, like it just the reason that I brought this up is because like now this year, if you look at Top Cuts, 8 Top Cuts from Blue Farm, 19 entries. The other ones were TNT, cEDH with 5 entries, 2 Top Cuts, Rogthras, 8 entries, 1 Top Cut, Kennen in there, Magda made a Top Cut, and then Atali. So just looking at that, the only real turbo deck out of that bunch is Atali.
Yeah.
And again, like in Atali, Atali I feel like did so well too because like you're playing into all meta stuff. The flips are going to be insane,
right,
with what you're going to see. So I don't know. I'm just thinking that I'm from what I'm feeling like, I feel like the reason I say this is like obviously I think Blue Farm is the best deck that we have in the format right now.
Right.
But this is more of like a thought experiment of what if what if just half the format all of a sudden decided, hey, we are going to go turbo. Does Blue Farm stay the best deck, or do the turbo decks just like swallow Blue Farm? Because it looked like last year when everybody was going turbo, Blue Farm just had a really hard time keeping up with all the turbo stuff that was getting thrown at it. And it tried its hand at going turbo as well. And it can do that to an extent, but Rogside was just so much better. So that was where I got the idea for this question. It's like, is Blue Farm actually the best deck? Like it is right now because of the way that everybody's decided this is how the format's gonna play out.
Yeah.
We're all gonna play mid range. But if everybody went turbo, would it still be the best deck?
Right.
So
well, and I think part of what you also have to kind of look at, because we were talking about this earlier before we recorded this, like based on when the Invitational took place last year, was that post or pre-ban?
That happened before the bans.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. I can go ahead and make sure. Just
yeah, double check on that, because that is the big difference. I feel like
this list is running a Dockside Extortionist. It is running. Let me look just to make sure I'm not lying to you. It's running.
It should be
Mana Crypt
and probably Jeweled Lotus, right?
Well, Rockside, it doesn't look like it's running.
Not in Rockside, but let's take a look at a Blue Farm list from the Invitational last year. It's probably running all three. Right?
We can look at Bailey's list, but yeah, I'll go. Let me pull up Bailey's list. He's the guy that won it all, so we'll look at Bailey's list just to see like what he was running in his list. Okay, so Bailey was running Dockside. Bailey had some weird stuff. He was running Blue Elemental Blade.
Oh my god.
That actually helped him win the game. He is on Mana Crypt, he's on Jeweled Lotus.
Okay. So I think that
he's also on Bloodchief Ascension.
That's a pretty huge difference. And what I mean by that is, let's even just look at Blue Farm for a second on its own. The mentality in Blue Farm shifted. Like when the bans hit, yes, all three of those cards could no longer be used in Blue Farm. Correct? But back then, you utilize Jeweled Lotus more to get Crom out. You're casting Crom, being able to draw more cards off of your opponent's casting spells throughout the turn. Like, kind of being able to go a little bit fast, but at the same time, like, Blue Farm was not necessarily a deck known for Dockside. Dockside was just very good at the time, and it's in red, so you can slot it into the deck. Mana Crypt obviously helping go faster. Yep. Now, if you think about it, like you're talking about Rogside then being the most dominant deck, it might not take advantage of Jeweled Lotus, but having access to Mana Crypt and like making it easier to turn one wheel if they had to, Dockside getting more treasures, like you're not doing loops with Dockside, unlike one of the other decks you listed there, which was cEDH, because that was the Dockside deck at the time was cEDH. And so you're going to see more consistency within cEDH. You're going to see more consistency within Rogside because you have these pieces that really help the deck turbo out. Yeah, Blue Farm lost those pieces, but look at the shift that Blue Farm has made since then. You know, back then I would argue that it was more dependent on Crom versus Tymna, where they can go a little bit lower on the creature count. They're not worried about as much combat damage. They're worried, but they could put Crom out there as a way of going, hey, I'm going to accrue more value during other players' turns even, and my turn, if people try to interact here.
Yeah.
And sometimes people, I mean, still people cast Crom, but look at the way the deck has been constructed more here recently, where there's Delnies. There's these low CMC value creatures that, you know, you can utilize Delny to get multiple triggers off of whatever's happening, or you can get them through for damage for Tymna. Like the deck itself has shifted in that way, but that it showed it never needed those pieces.
Yeah.
Whereas cEDH, up until recently, has kind of been struggling ever since the ban. You know, ever since like, you know, people have started retooling it to go more of either the hybrid builds or just jamming Thassa's, you know, Tainted or Consult, you know, even if you're not on a hybrid build. Like, that deck has seen a resurgence. Itali, you mentioned, like, made great advantage of all three of those pieces. But you make a lot of mana as is within Gruul colors.
Yeah.
So it was something that was never needed. It was just an added piece. Like, yeah, it probably can quickly get a turn one Atali if you have Mana Crypt and Jeweled Lotus and maybe a Dockside, but it's not needed in the deck. Rogsai, even though it's fast, it's still like I would almost argue is like the standard for turbo decks. Even now, it's not to the point it once was. Does kicking out Dockside and Mana Crypt make that much of a difference in it? Maybe. But when all these other decks that last year were performing so consistently then, and in the way that it was, once you kind of cut the legs out from underneath it, it allows the meta to just slow down again. And like I said, even though Blue Farm lost those pieces, it really didn't lose anything overall. And so it allowed that opportunity for it to actually catch back up with what these decks were doing. And now here we are. You know, it wasn't this past weekend. It was the weekend before, whenever the Invitational and the 20K and things like that were going on. But like, we are in this meta now, whether we like it or not, and Blue Farm is probably in the best colors to adjust and go with whatever direction it wants to. Whether because we have seen, you know, versions of this list, whether it be the more control-y side, where we've seen like some Toxic Deluges and Fire Covenants, maybe a little bit more counter interactive, or maybe even like fewer creatures kind of at times that don't allow the deck to go as fast. We've seen the more turbo-esque version of it, where they are on the Adnaz, the Necropotence, the Rain of Filth, so on, to try to go a little bit faster within Blue Farm. But then you have the much more consistent versions of it, like we've also seen, where it's like, you know, this deck is designed, it can go fast, but if it needs to sit back and grind, or it needs to just kind of fluctuate in between, it's going to, because it has everything that it needs to, and it's going to accrue so much value that it whenever it's time for it to pivot, it's just going to go.
Yeah. Well, so like, again, I definitely agree with what you're saying there, but the big thing for me is that, and like, again, I understand that those were big pieces for turbo decks. Like, obviously Dockside being able to just be like huge burst of mana, that's massive. Stuff like J-Lo being able to just say, well, here, you know, but like, again, Rogsai wasn't even running that, so they really
no, and it didn't need to.
Yes, yeah. And so like they weren't running that, so like we'll just cut that, so like that doesn't matter. But then like Mana Crypt does make a big difference.
Yeah.
But that was essentially what I'm getting at, is like, if people committed to, hey, we're still doing the turbo plan even now, like without those cards right now, we're committed to turbo. Blue Farm, again, like its value, it finds most of its value later into the game, like it being able to say, hey, we're gonna mull for like early advantage pieces. Even whenever you looked at when you looked at the Final Four, it was like a crazy game. Like I watched the stream pretty much like the whole way through, and it was really fun to watch. But you're seeing now where like everybody was like trying to jam, like you would, or not trying to jam, like you would see people that were actually like advancing their board. They were doing things early. You would see a Kennen getting set up. You would see Sisse starting to set up. You would see Magda starting to set up. You would see some of these other decks, like they were finally like trying to get their legs underneath them. And then all of a sudden, like, you know, by the time that they were like, okay, I'm going to try and pivot to this win, here comes a Mayhem Devil. Here comes a Delny. Here comes more value engines. Like in the final game, it was crazy. Like there was like Zach had Lotho, Fairy Mastermind, Esper Sentinel, Delny, Timna, like all these, Crom, tons of value that had just slowly gotten worse and worse and worse, like, or more and more and more and more value over the game. At one point, one of the other players had like a ton of treasures. He had the Professional Facebreaker, had Timna, had a Bowmaster, had just like a ton of value there. One player started the game with 2 Esper Sentinels, went like Gemstone, and then turned to like his very first turn, land Esper Sentinel, Mockingbird for an Esper Sentinel. Other player turn 1 Esper Sentinel. By the time that game was over, one of the Blue Farm players literally, he had 2 Rhystic Studies on board. I think he had Crom, maybe Timna. I mean, it got to the point to where they had drawn through literally all of their deck except for like 6 cards, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And they still did, like, it was nuts. Like the game was just insane. There was a stack war that was like this. I mean, it was so long. There was like over 15, 16 cards on this stack. Like it was ridiculous. Plus like storm triggers and all sorts. It was crazy. But the only reason that that happens is because I feel like people are allowing them to get set up because they're allowed to be greedy. Like right now, we're finding that people are being greedy. Like things like Ral and some of these other decks, like it's a gamble. You know, if you don't find the hand that's good and like you can't find the lands, whatever it may be, you're kind of toast.
Yeah.
But we're seeing blue form once they are established, you're just not going to beat them. Like once they get their feet under them, you're just not going to win. And a lot of times, like even one of the finals games, the reason that I think it was Andy who actually got in was because the finals, or not the finals game, the top 16 game that he was in got stalled out so long that it eventually just went to time. And because he had the best seed order, he got bumped up into the event. Like I did some stats, and this is crazy to me. But again, like now we're playing more mid range, obviously, like card advantage, things like that, they matter. But I wanted to track the difference from last year's stats to this year's stats. So I got kind of bored. I just wanted to see. So like this year's stats, for instance, I tracked both 3-player games and 4-player games, and I kind of tracked them separately because I feel like it changes a huge dynamic of the way the game's played whenever you're in a 3-person pod versus a 4-person pod. But no 3-player games had draws, none. In this year or last year, there was 15 3-player pod games that went on this year, and again, none of them had draws. Last year there were 8 games, none of them had draws. This was something really interesting that I found in the 3-player games. So seat 1, four times seat 1 got the win, and 4 times seat 3 got the win. 7 times seat 2 got the win. So 46% of the time seat 2 would win whenever there's a 3-player game. But I was like, okay, it's a small sample size. Maybe that was just like, I'm just curious. So I went and looked at last year. Last year, seat 1 in 3-player games, only 2 players got the win in seat 1. 5 got wins in seat 2, and 1 got win in seat 3. So 62% in seat 2. So it looks like if you're in a 3-player game, seat 2 is where you want to be, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I thought that was wild. But I did look. So 50%, 49.5% of the games from this event ended in a draw. 49.5 ended in a draw, which is crazy. There was 105 4-player games played. 53 of them had a player where they won. 52 of them resulted in draws.
Wow.
Yeah. I looked at last year. There was 106 games played. 75 of them resulted in wins. Only 31 of them resulted in draws. So that's 71% of the games actually had a winner last year, whereas only 29% actually had draws. So we literally like doubled essentially the number of draws that we saw this year because people just couldn't push. Like eventually the game got so bogged down with stuff going on that nobody could win. And another thing that I found really interesting, I feel like this year it made more sense. Like 21 players won in seat 1, 18 in seat 2, 11 in seat 3. Only 3 players in the whole event won in seat 4. 2.9%. That was your win. That was your chances of winning the game.
I think that's a whole different discussion at times.
Yes.
Where it's going to be like, hey, is this, what do we need to do to fix this seat order thing?
Yeah. So 20% of people 20% chance of winning if you were in, and again, like these are factoring in the draws. 20% chance of winning if you were in seat 1, 17% in seat 2, 10% in seat 3, 3% in seat 4. That's terrible. But I looked at last year. This was really cool. 19 wins from seat 1 in the whole event. 27 wins in seat 2. 14 in seat 3. 15 in seat 4. So seats 1, 3, and 4 had pretty similar percentage, like chances of winning. 18% if you were in seat 1. 13% in seat 2, 14% if you were in seat, or 13% if you're in seat 3, 14% if you were in seat 4. But seat 2, you had a 25% win chance, 27 players. Yeah, that like it's crazy. So seat 2 was where you wanted to be at last year, apparently. But now now that we're in mid range, it's kind of worked itself out. Like the person who's getting the most turns is going to be the one that wins the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it there's just something that I just noticed. Like I just happen to be tracking some of this, just because I think stats are cool. But it's just crazy, man. Like we're seeing that now that everybody's truly playing into the mid range, a lot of games are ending in draws. Like the game state has gotten so bogged down with value that nobody can safely push. Even the finals game, that's what happened. I mean, that stack was so long. Like you had one person over here, like every time a spell was cast, you'd have 2 Esper Sentinel triggers, 2 Lotho triggers. You'd have a trigger over here for 2 Rhystic Studies, and then another spell would get cast, and all of a sudden now you've got a Crom trigger and a Ledger Shredder trigger, and you've got, which is crazy, there was a Ledger Shredder in one of the blue farm lists. Another Crom trigger. You got another, like, 2 more Ristic Studies. You got another Crom trigger over here, and then the whole time people are drawing cards, you've got like 10 Smothering Ties. One of the blue farm players at one point had 60 treasures on board.
Jesus,
like, it was just nuts. Like, the game state got so bogged down, and I mean, it was just stack, and it kept building and building and building, and it was crazy. But literally nobody would push until it was like fixing to go to time.
Yeah.
And if it went to time, Zach wins because he's the highest seat. So everybody just felt like, okay, now we got to go.
Yeah. Well, and while I'm thinking about it, this is a side conversation, maybe something to elaborate on later on. But my thought whenever I hear that, whenever I hear all the draws, whenever I hear all the stacks, whenever I hear all the accrued value, and especially saying that literally 50% of the top 16 from the Invitational was blue farm. If this was a Wizards sanctioned event,
yeah,
and that happened,
yeah,
and there was this many draws that was going on, especially now that Wizards has taken over the format after all the bans and stuff like that, we would be seeing another ban before October hits, before the new Top Deck season gets hit. Because like that, and maybe seeing that, seeing not just the numbers and people like consistently playing this deck, but also seeing the amount of draws that are taking place and the amount of cat butts that are on camera, buddy. Like, I know you want attention. It's okay. Say hi. But just do it in a different way. But like, you know, if I were a Wizards person, I saw that and I'm like, oh, we're trying to take care of this format and push this format. But now we have this issue of, hey, there's this one particular deck that is a problem. Maybe not necessarily a problem. You can't say that's a problem because it's a good deck and everyone, like, there's a shit ton of people playing it. But I would be them going, okay, we need to look and see what we need to do to lower that deck. But it goes back to what I was saying earlier, like, literally the bans that happened last year didn't even affect blue farm.
No.
If you think about it realistically, they just shifted the game plan a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I think they benefited the most from it.
Yeah.
Because now we're seeing that. Like,
we are seeing that. Like, that's the thing. Like, and if I were them, that's where I'd be like, look, if we're going to take the format more seriously, or we're going to, you know, really try to continue pushing Commander and even cEDH as part of the bracket 5, we can't be having this at this premier event. Like, there's got to be more diversity. There's got to be more than that. But I think that kind of adds to the point of, like, this is the best deck in the format right now. Like, it's kind of like where standard players right now are like most of the meta right now is is it Cauldron. And you know that next time bans come around, they're probably going to be banning something from that.
Yeah.
So why would they not do the same thing for us?
Well, but see, that's the thing that I'm finding so fascinating. Because again, like and that's kind of why I'm starting this discussion. Because don't get me wrong, I definitely think that blue farm is the best deck in the format. I'm just surprised. Because again, like, I'm into stats.
Well, the numbers show it now.
Oh, for sure. Well, the numbers have showed it for a while, but now, like, this is definitive. But I think that the problem is, like, I'm more probing the question of what would it take for Tim Crom not to be the best deck in the format? And again, I understand, like, everybody goes, oh, you just ban Tim, ta-da. And again, like, people go, ban Ristic Study. Dude, Zach won yesterday and never once resolved a Ristic Study. Like, he was the guy that won.
Well, not only that, we're seeing decks cutting Ristic Study.
Yeah.
We're seeing the turbo decks cut Ristic Study, but we're seeing decks cut Ristic Study and keep fish in.
Yeah. Well, we were seeing that with the Rockside list last year. Remember, like, everybody was calling it Dark Rog. They cut all the counters. They were just fast. And I wonder, because I've not seen any lists doing that this year now. And maybe because, like, it's just objectively wrong. I don't know. Like, I haven't. But I'm curious to see what that would be like. I was talking to Fizzle because, I mean, he played in the event, and he literally said, he was like, dude, it was a tough meta for Rogsai. He said that one of his games, I think it was his final game, because if he was on the winning end, if he could win and he could get in, or if he won, he would make top cut. And I was like, heck yeah, dude. And I was watching, I was sweating bullets. And he had a turn 2 protected win. Still didn't get there. And I'm like, what? He got stopped. It wasn't that he didn't get there. The deck did its thing, but they still stopped him on a turn 2 protected win. Like, it was just, it's insane. Yeah. But that's where I'm kind of saying, like, what would it take for blue farm not to be the best? Other than, obviously, like, you ban the partners, like they ban Crom or they ban Timner or whatever. But
Yeah, but that would
If
be too much of a meta shift up. I don't even know
like
if full on bans could help with that, because here's the thing, like that deck in particular, and it's kind of what we were talking about earlier as far as like my mindset on like deck building and things like that. Like I feel like there's like three paths you go down whenever you're building decks.
yeah.
You can either go the aggressive turbo
Mhm.
and you try to go as fast as you can.
Mhm.
You go the control route and just try to, control the board state, slow everyone else down, play Zur and Angel's Grace and Silence Effects as much as you can.
Oh yeah.
And then that's where you actually meet in the middle, and that is the mid range.
Yeah.
Like I don't feel like the mid range hell is just the state of what we're in. It is a mindset in deck building construction process. And Blue Farm taking that and going, hey, even though we don't have green, we literally don't play any bad cards.
Seriously.
And having the ability to go, oh, this is a hand that it's all good cards and I have a turn 2 protected win, even in Blue Farm. Or, oh, I'm sitting in seat 4 and I have free interaction and a way of setting up my own board state.
Yeah.
Cool. And I'm going to just grind everyone else out at the table the best I can.
Yeah.
Like it is the deck right now that if you are playing just no bad cards, it does not matter what point in the game you're at. You can drop a piece and it has a massive impact on the game. You can have an Esper Sentinel on turn 1, or you can have an Esper Sentinel on turn 7.
Mhm.
And people will still look at it and go, fuck, that is an Esper Sentinel and that's a problem right now.
Yeah.
Like that's just where that deck is. Whereas other decks, like even me on cEDH, like dorks on turn 1, turn 2, great. Drawing into a dork when I need another answer and on turn 5 or 6, fuck me.
Yeah.
Like that's how that deck feels, even though that I would consider as more of a mid-range deck. Rogsai, seeing a wheel in their opening hand and being able to cast it and disrupt everyone after they've done whatever they need to in their turn, great. Sometimes seeing a wheel in late game is not the best thing. Yeah, I could put them back in, but you're going to put everyone else back in too, potentially. That includes the Blue Farm player. Or if you see it too late, Blue Farm player is already going to have an answer to it. They're just going to counter it because they're going to have 20 cards in hand to go, well, I know you need to get back in, but if I let you get back in now, then I'm not going to be in it. So I'm just going to counter.
Well, but that's one thing that again, like we were talking about too, I find fascinating how you, like me and you almost play like, I don't know, like just they're like the decks are like diametrically opposed to one another. Like you play a deck that is combo, like there's all these combos, and it's like you said, you have your dorks and stuff, and then all of a sudden like the deck is like full of combos, and you've went up more on your interactive like spells too. Like I've noticed that you've gone like used to, man, you were playing like 9 counter spells, and like you were even cutting certain things like the Pact of Negation, and I don't even know if you're on Pact right now, but you were adding in stuff like Strix, and you were cutting a lot of that stuff. And then I was like total opposite. Yeah. I'm playing a deck that is all answers, no combos. Like I run one combo in the whole deck, and it is Thassa, Consult / Tainted Fact, and then I run like Meme Bet. You know what I mean? And even then, Meme Bet has felt real bad sometimes because I'm just like, shit, okay. But and then I run like the Silence Effects to try and protect my wins. Yeah. But like I have noticed now that my problem is that I'm dragging people because again me and Logan helped me shift the deck into like control. I'm having a hard time pivoting to a win, and I think that I thought that was just a me problem, like, oh, okay, maybe it's a deck choice like selection, but I'm seeing a lot of these decks having trouble pivoting to that win because now the board state has become so bogged down that it is like, geez Louise, man, like this is insane. Like he made one subtle change where instead of putting Windfall in the deck, we decided we were going to run Time Twister. And I literally had a game one day that went, like I was just playing, and I literally had so many value engines on board. I was drawing so many cards. I couldn't find the win to save my life. Yeah. But everybody that was trying to go for win, I'd be like, no, and just stopping everybody. And eventually I was like, dude, I think I'm almost out of counter spells in my deck. I just resolved a Time Twister, threw everything back in. I'm drawing more cards. No. Yeah. And eventually I think I ended up like Yogg's Willing doing it again. And like, it was stupid. I had to just like,
that sounds stupid.
Yeah. Like, I could not find a win to save my life. I kept having to be the problem solver. that game never would have lasted that long. And I don't even think we ended up having a winner of that game. Like it went over 3 hours, and eventually we just had to leave because
That sounds miserable.
because the shop closed. But that's what I'm seeing from a lot of these decks now is everybody's truly playing into, again, like mid range, which I'm playing control, and I do agree with you. I think some people label mid range as like the stage in the game where they're like turbos this many, and then mid range is this, and then
Yeah,
this is the,
I feel like even though we are in I will fully agree we are in mid range hell, but I do feel like my philosophy on it is a deck construction thing
Yeah.
as opposed to just where we are at.
in the stage of the game.
Yeah, and people disagree with me on that, but let me kind of add on to that point. Whether and the decks that I consider this is like I think of Blue Farm, I think Rogthras, I think because Rogthras, like, yeah, it can build up a massive board presence in the early game, but like sometimes it kind of struggles at times to convert a win like instantly like that. It is trying to grind out and be a little bit like grindier, but can still convert to an early win if it needs to, which is why I kind of put it in this mid-range category of deck building. cEDH, I feel like that's in there because it has the bit like it has so much flexibility and can pivot. It can control if you do build it that way, but it's also trying to play around what the mid range is currently doing because if you resolve cEDH and you have enough mana, you're not casting spells at that point. Like so you're not really interacting with the stack all that much as far as casting things. So it makes sense to be lower on like your counter package. I think Kennen is kind of in this classification as well. But I think that what sets Blue Farm even apart from those, and I feel like cEDH is kind of up there with it compared to these, and maybe Rogthras as opposed to Kennen, there is this inevitability factor to it. You know, you're talking about playing Zur, and you pushed it to the long game, 3 hours, and you still didn't get there.
Yeah.
Because sometimes in control decks there isn't that inevitability factor.
Yeah.
With the turbo decks, whether it's a Tali or Rogsai or hell, if you build Magda that way, because it can get really aggressive. Like sometimes if it gets stopped, it gets stopped.
Yeah.
And so you have to worry about it right out of the gate. But once that gate's open for all the other decks, some of those things just don't have that inevitability piece.
Yeah.
Blue Farm is inevitable.
Yeah.
It is the Thanos of our format. Okay? So
Crom's just the Thanos.
Hey, now that we have the Soul Stone though.
I think that card's terrible, but that's
a different discussion. We missed out on those discussions. We were too late for the discussion on that. But
whatever. No.
But I do think that is another factor of what makes Blue Farm just the best. Is that no matter how, like, yeah, you're a little bit tighter on how you construct it. You basically don't play any bad cards. What maybe the worst card you play in it is like Rite of Flame.
Yeah, but even is that bad? You know?
No, for 1 red, you cast that, and like if you save a mana casting your Underworld Breach.
Well,
like,
not only that, I've seen like literally one of the games where I think it was Sterling. The way he got into Top Cut, dude, it was insanity. I mean, it was insane. Like same thing, but his top 16 game, he resolved an Ad Naus and started flipping, and there was no cards in his hand.
Yeah.
He resolved a Wish Claw, and they were like, okay. And then he went and tutored with the Wish Claw and gave it to a player and resolved an Ad Nauseum. No cards in hand, and nobody had counter spells for it. Fills his hand up, and then he like starts putting out a bunch of rocks and doing doing what he can, and he finishes with I think it was a top deck tutor, and then he finished with a top deck tutor, and then he had like 1 mana left. That was just 1 red, and he like cast a Rite of Flame with it, going to 2 red, and then cast Final Fortune, and like that was it.
Yep.
And then there he goes into his next turn. He untaps everything, and then I think he resolved Abolisher just to be 100% sure.
Yeah.
Resolved a Facebreaker, exile it, or crack a treasure, goes and like gets the card that he had top deck tutor for, or like he drew the top deck tutor again. Facebreaker gets that card too, and then ended up doing like Brain Freeze and like got there with Breach.
Yeah. But that's even kind of my point though. It's like even if the Rite of Flame was the worst card in that entire deck, outside of like if someone included a basic land into
Yeah.
into the deck. Like there's a purpose behind it.
Yeah.
That's why that deck doesn't play bad cards.
Yeah.
Sisei plays a lot of bad cards. It has inevitability, but it plays a lot of bad cards, and whenever it needs to interact, it mostly can't.
Yeah.
Blue farm can do whatever it wants to at almost any point in the game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think that it's just it's nuts, man. I don't know. I like I said, I definitely think that it's the best deck, but I'm just curious I'm curious what would have to happen for it to not be the best at this point. Like again, obviously barring a Tymna ban, that obviously ruins the deck. But
yeah.
even then, do you like one thing that I'm kind of curious about is like why like even if like okay, obviously Tymna is like very strong in that list because she says, "Hey, your creatures are going to get you extra card draw." And then Crom says, "Hey, your opponent's playing the game. Cool, I'll get you some cards. Like, no problem, man. I got you." And he's a big attacker for Tymna.
Yeah.
But again, barring that, like, I really don't even think that, like, if Rhystic Study got banned, I don't think that the deck gets hurt that bad.
It doesn't, no.
Or at all, really. I mean,
No.
it just keeps going. I don't think that if you banned Necropotence or whatever, I think that the deck's fine, obviously. Like, not that
a lot of decks don't play Necropotence.
Yeah, and I'm not even
like
talking, nobody's necessarily being like, "Oh, ban Necro," but like, if you ban that, that's fine. People say, "Oh, well, like ad nauseum's a problem." Not really, because we're seeing people cut Nas too.
Right.
And I mean, even the list yesterday, I think it won with no Nas. I mean, he almost killed himself to Delny triggers, dude. It was crazy to Lotho triggers with Delny.
Really?
He got down to 10 life.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it was crazy. And so eventually he had to culling Writ the Delny to make sure he wasn't gonna die. He was like, "I'm killing this Delny right now." but yeah, it was just yeah. Or wait, Calling the Week?
Yeah.
Not Calling Ritual, Calling the Week, right?
Calling the Week.
Calling the Week, yeah. But yeah, so like he just eats the Delny for 4 black mana, whatever. But it was just nuts. Like, man, it's I don't know. Like I said, I'm just trying to figure it out. Like, I wonder if it does run a lot of answers to things. But if a lot of people shifted to Turbo, would it just turn into, okay, I can stop one Turbo player, but I can't stop them all? Or would it just be like, okay, only one Turbo player actually found a decent hand, and the other ones are just like, wow, I'm kind of out of it, and then Blue Farm just still does the thing.
Kind of sounds like Steel City a little bit, just a little bit.
Oh yeah,
like with the Atali when it got turned 2 and things like that, like just nutty hand early Atali and got good flips, but
I mean, go ahead.
Well, but that brings up another point. I think not just the inevitability factor, not just that it plays like all good cards.
Mm-hmm.
It's playing cards that's going to make it the most consistent.
Yeah.
Like Atali, as powerful it is, as turbo as it is, and you get to play other people's decks, technically speaking, and has a really solid game plan. Like, you're adding a lot more luck when you're playing Atali.
Yeah.
And sometimes, and that's how it kind of is at times with some of these turbo decks. Maybe not as much Rog side because you have access to like the good tutors. But not only in blue form do you have access to the silence effects to protect your turn, you have access to all the good tutors that you actually want.
Yeah.
And so that the consistency of it as well is something that just kind of came to mind as we were talking about that for a second.
Yeah. Well, I was just looking at Zach's record too at this event, but he literally went 5-1-3. Like, Jesus, dude.
Yeah.
Now the other blue form pilots, like Andy went 3-2-4. Corwin went 3-3-3, and then Sterling went 3-4-2.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, deck's just good. And I guess to kind of go back into your point, though, of like, what would it take for people to go, okay, we see that this mid-range is a problem, so we are going to take it upon ourselves to really like adjust and try to go faster and jam wins and play the version of cEDH that most people feel like is the actual cEDH, like winning on turn 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Right? Because that for the longest time, that has been what either casual players or people that are getting into the format, that's the preconceived idea of what cEDH was, is, oh, this person won on turn 3 and that's all cEDH is. No, you have these games now going several hours and like the top 16 and finals rounds. Like, part of that's where we're at, but if people chose to walk away from that and go into turbo or more strictly more control build, I think it's only going to take something as drastic as a ban to convince people to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like even these past few weeks when we're breaking down decks, look at some of these Grixis shells where we've seen people kind of move off of Rogsai and get onto Kefka. Talking about it for Bissy, but you know, but I think that's a relevant argument of like when we put out that video a few weeks ago on like trying like almost making your deck more like Blue Farm. People are doing that, and now we're pushing more and more into that mid game.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think it's going to take something so drastic that it shakes up the format that people go, there's not a reason to play this deck anymore.
Well, what's funny, and again, this is just something that I thought was hilarious, but Zach made a comment where, because they asked him, they said, was there another deck that you considered bringing to the event? And I can't remember what his answer was. I don't even know if he actually said an answer, but he made a comment that he had recently picked up Blue Farm within the last several months. So he's not been on the deck for a super long time. He's only been on the deck for like the last several months or so. And he straight up said, he goes, guys, I'll be honest with you. The deck has gotten boring. I don't really like playing the deck, but it's just good.
Like if you're going to win and you want to win, probably play Blue Farm.
Yeah. Dude, I don't know. Like I said, I mean, obviously, like objectively, it's the correct decision, but I don't know. It was just something that like got my brain thinking. Obviously, I think that Blue Farm is the best. I don't think that you can really argue with it, but yeah, man, I don't know. Like, just what does it take to make this deck? Like, barring a Tim to ban again, like we keep talking this up, do you think that there's anything else that could happen that would completely fix the problem, or do you think that?
Dude, I don't know, man. Here's the thing, like you ban Timna, yeah, sure. But then you shake up the format so drastically that something else is going to take its place. Probably Kennen, Rogthras, and
Really?
Sisse, because those are already the ones that are on the verge of taking
its
spot anyway. Probably more so Rogthras, because that deck doesn't even care about playing Rhystic Study. I would like it plays it obviously, but if Rhystic Study got banned, like Rogthras just kind of dominates. I feel like
really, because
that deck makes so much mana and can draw so many cards through Thrasios. It don't matter.
I'm just looking at I'm looking at placement wise, like there was a Rogthras that made it into Top Cut, but there were 2 Sisseys that made it into Top Cut.
And that deck doesn't care about Rhystic either. Like that's the thing. The decks that step up are the decks that just don't give a shit about Rhystic Study. And I don't even think banning Rhystic Study is the answer, because then you have this we would still find ourselves in the mid range, because those decks don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
And yeah, it hurts Blue Farm, but what happens whenever Blue Farm finds a way to adjust it? Like,
yeah,
they'll just play fish and finding ways to protect fish, or we've seen kind of this back and forth as far as the creature value engines being like Esper, Archivist. We just saw a list last week in the top 16 that had Polywog Prodigy in a Blue Farm shell. Might even find a way to dive deeper into making sure Crom is cast more consistently. Like, it's just going to... We're seeing decks playing Stormkiln Artist in Blue Farm. You mentioned Mayhem Devil earlier. Like, they're just gonna find a way.
Well, that was something Zach made a comment about too, where he said that over the course of that whole event, Mayhem Devil was like his MVP card for his whole deck. But then he said in that one last game, Delny was the MVP card for them. Yeah. But yeah, this is something I'm going to pivot just for a sec, because I'm curious. So just looking at the metagame breakdown from this, ignoring Blue Farm, which they made up half of the pool, we had 2 TNTs, so Tymna Thras, for people that don't know. So Tymna and Thrasios, 2 Sisseys, 1 Rog Grak Thrasios, 1 Kennen, 1 Magda, and 1 Atali in Top Cuts outside of all the Blue Farms.
Yeah.
Out of all of these decks, let's say, which of these decks do you think Blue Farm hurts the most? Like, if it did go away, out of those, which one do you think ends up becoming the top contender? You have, like, again, TNT, Sissay, Rogthras, Kennen, Magda, Atali. Like, who do you think actually gets hurt by Tim McCrom the most, and who would end up being the dominant deck? Because I feel like that's the thing about TNT or Tim McCroms is that they are a lot of times the mid-range policer at the table while also being, like you said, the inevitability engine. If they're gone, which of these lists do you think just, or which of these decks do you think just run away? You think Kennen?
Yeah, Kennen, like Kennen does, like, even though we've seen a lot of Kennen lists that are going on like the no bad stuff list, and you've played one recently where you're focusing on being able to make multiple copies of the Ristics and laying down all these pieces, so it's almost like a Kennen but Blue Farm-esque, like, but at the same time, we've seen Kennen dominate even from last year's standards whenever it wasn't on that list and playing stuff like the Void Winners and the Wandering Archaics and things like that. I don't think that deck would like shift back to that, but I think that a deck that can make use of as much mana as it can in the command zone and get around things on the stack, I think that those are the decks. I think that Kennen would outperform cEDH. But I think Rogthras, it would almost, I think, honestly, it'd probably be like cEDH, or not cEDH, Kennen, then Rogthras, then maybe TNT, cEDH at that point. But even cEDH has that, like I said, the inevitability factor. It plays similar to Kennen in a way where it can kind of get around the stack. I don't know. I just think Kennen would take the spot.
Okay. See, I don't know, man. I think cEDH would probably be the... me personally, I think cEDH would end up being like the powerhouse at that point.
I mean, maybe. I mean, but at the same time, I feel like that would just be off of not knowing what the deck construction was going to be.
Yeah.
If you go in heavy into the cEDH plan, you still have to make Wooburg.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's not the easiest thing to do.
I agree. Here's my reasoning behind this, and again, like I was saying, like I think that a deck like Timnathras, so TNT, I think the part of the reason why it did so well is because it had the benefit of things like Timnacrom dragging people into like the mid-range later stages of the game. TNT, what I've noticed is they have a hard time pivoting to a win until they find something like Survival of the Fittest or cards like that. And once they find that card, then it's like, okay, now I can really win. But they don't really have that just instant, like, okay, like, boom, I'm over here. They have so many synergistic cards in the deck, or like so many A+B combo type cards in the deck that you really have to find both of those combo pieces to be able to like really do anything. And yes, they run a lot of tutors, but the nice thing about something like Breach, for instance, Gifts is an immediate, or like Intuition is an immediate one card combo piece essentially in the deck. If you have Gifts Ungiven, it's a one card combo piece in the deck. If you run Breach, and if you tutor for Breach, you can just cast the Breach and then reuse the tutor. So it's essentially just, there you go.
But maybe that's the card.
Breach. Just get rid of it. Yeah.
Maybe you just get rid of Breach.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been banned in Modern.
Yeah.
And like, so.
But TNT, what I've noticed is like, it doesn't do you any good to have Hazels and Swiffer configuration in your hand. It doesn't do you any good to have, I mean, some people, I think actually, I don't know for sure, but I think a lot of the lists that were played, one of them was for sure Grant Eklund. He was playing like the Cradle Farm type version, like the Rogthras version, but it was TNT.
Yeah.
Which was super interesting. And I don't know about the other one. I have to check that out. Heck, even both of the Rog side, I was curious too, because both of the Rog sides that ended up doing well in the event were both wrong size.
Really?
One was Logan, and he ended up like just a few spots off of making top cut. And the next Rog side that you see in the event was Ty Ohio, which he's over with like Jake and them over like in the Ohio scene, part of the Zen crew. And I mean, he's running like, I was just looking through his list. He's running Con Sphinx. He's running like the Narset, Porter of Veils. He's running Polis Citadel in the 99. He's running Necro and Nas both too, even with all that. Like he's running just, he's like full blown, like he's running the wrong side variant of the list. And again, it's just more people were playing mid-range decks. Even the decks that are typically turbo decks were playing mid-range variants of those decks. So I don't know. Like that was why I was asking. Like if somebody just went, we're going turbo. Like half the meta was like, we're going turbo. We're all turbo pilled now. We're going turbo. Contender Crom keep up with like, I'll stop you. Now I'm gonna stop you. Now I'm gonna stop you. Now I'm gonna get going. Or does it like, well, I stopped this guy, but then Rao got there.
Yeah.
I stopped Rao. Rogsai got there. I stopped this deck over here, and then Atali ended up flipping into one of my tutors and went and got food chain. I already had Squee exiled off a gemstone. You know what I mean? Like what happened in that instance? Like that was essentially the question. Is like, is the only reason blue form this dominant because everybody has said, oh, we're just gonna play control / mid range, and we're seeing people come off of the turbo plan, or is the reason that people are coming off the turbo plan because they're realizing that the mid range is where everybody wants to be? I don't know.
I don't know if that's where everyone wants to be.
It's not where everybody wants to be. It's just where people are succeeding the most. Like if you look at people having the best, consistently having the best results, they're playing in that mid-range area. Yeah. But I didn't know.
I don't know, man. I think it's too big of a question for us to answer. Mm-hmm. You know, that's why we need help from you all kind of answering this question of what do you all think would be the solution to getting out of this mid-range hell, or whether or not you think that blue farm actually is definitively the best deck in the format, or just what Blake is saying of like, what is it going to take for people to be like almost in agreement of like, this is what's going to happen in order for us to go into this much faster format and get away from the mid-range or get away from blue farm.
Yeah. I will say just, I guess like, and again, like I guess wrapping stuff up too, so that way we're not going forever. But I do think that, like, I'm not saying that I'm not advocating for like a Tymna ban. I'm not advocating for people to go turbo. I'm not advocating for a Ristic ban. I'm not advocating for breach ban. I'm not advocating for any of that stuff. Like, I came from Yu-Gi-Oh! Forever ago that like stuff would get banned constantly, and it's always a feels bad moment whenever you see like one of your favorite decks or one of your favorite cards or something just get banned, and you're like, oh, man, like it would always make me so mad. Or you'd put a deck together, you'd spend all that money, and then boom, it's just worthless. And so I'm not necessarily advocating for a ban of any sort like that, because I get it does suck. Now, the people in the chat during that event were very much so advocating for a ban. I mean, as soon as we saw Tymna and everything else in the top, there were people that were like, ban Tymna, ban Tymna. There were people that were saying, ban Ristic, and people being like, no, Ristic doesn't fix it. And then they go, don't ban Tymna. And then people will be like, no, ban all the partners, ban the partner mechanic. People saying, you know, and then of course you have those nice ones that are like, ban cEDH, you know. But no, I do think that it was just an interesting question that I wanted to like pose of how do we fix this. I actually kind of like where cEDH is at, even though it's kind of hectic right now with all the mid-rangey stuff, and like the board's getting really bogged down and like just, you know, but I'm kind of glad that Turbo, it has kind of gotten narrow, like honed in to just these few decks. And even then they can't just completely go uncontested or completely go, like they're not going completely unchecked. Like these decks end up being things that like Atali, there's no, you have to get lucky with that deck. Like there is an element of, I flipped good, I'm gonna win. You know, I mean, the literal difference between an Atali that makes a top cut versus an Atali that ends up literally not getting a single win for the day, the list could look the exact same, and it really just comes down to what pod were you in, what flips did you get, things like that.
And seed order.
Seed order is a huge one. I mean, there is a huge element of luck to that game, but still, like it's, you know what I mean. So like I'm kind of glad that Turbo has gotten reined into this thing. I understand, like, some people love to go fast and they want to play Turbo and they want to play like Rogsai, and like, you know, Lamora and a lot of these people were really upset whenever Rogsai got banned, and I completely understand why. Like, I'm not taking anything away from them, because again, if all of a sudden I lost my favorite commander or I lost my favorite deck or I lost something, I would be really upset. Like, I don't think Zer's getting axed anytime soon just because he's not really that great right now. I love him, but
I always run the risk with Sissy.
Yeah, seriously, no, for real. And like, and again, your deck got really hurt with the bans, but like really hurt.
Yeah,
my list was completely fine. People were like, ban Ristic, and I was like, damn, that's really gonna suck. I guess I just got to go heavy Necropotence. Even if they said we're gonna ban them both, I've literally told you, I was like, I don't give a crap. If anything, that makes people less scared of Zer, which means I can just potentially go into like a different direction with the deck, like whatever. But I just love, people love their commanders. We spend a lot of money in this format. We invest a lot of time. We want to get good with the decks that we want to play. Plus, we all want to win, and we just want to do well with the decks that we got. So, like, I don't want to necessarily advocate for a ban because I feel bad for people that obviously like don't get to play that. But and again, but I am kind of happy that we're more mid-rangey. Like, you get the chance to actually set up and play the game and see cards. You don't just show up to a table and it's always over turn 2. Like, I used to get so annoyed going to tournaments and somebody'd just have it and you'd be like, fuck. I literally got beat by a Rogsai in an event one time. It was one of my first cEDH tournaments. I got beat by a Rogsai that leylined as a pregame and just won. And I was like, what the fuck? And I just like...
You have to admit, that is kind of...
Oh, it was awesome.
It's impressive.
I was very happy for them. But like when I got up from the table, I mean, I'll never like disparage somebody for that.
Yeah.
That was fucking sick. I like, I'm like fist bumping and be like, hey man, thank you for the game. Like, I appreciate y'all, whatever. And then I kind of go outside and I'm like, God dang it. And I'm just like, fuck. Like I should have kept a counter spell or something, you know what I mean? But it's stuff like that. But one thing that I do think, and again, this may even probe into a discussion for next week. One thing that I think has to get addressed is this fucking draw issue. This is silly. Half of the games ended in draw. It was twice as many draws as last.
Yeah.
And again, when everybody's going turbo, you're probably going to have a winner because if they don't get stopped, the next person in turn order probably gets it.
Yeah.
And that might have been why we saw seat 2 being so advantageous that year, because people went for it on turn 1. Like that, whoever's in seat 1, set up a board, everybody kind of sets up. They jam they're in seat 1, they jam on their turn 2. Don't get there. Seat 2 gets there. That might have been why seat 2 was so advantageous that year. I mean, it had like almost twice as many wins as like some of the other seats. Like, it was crazy. But this is a lot of draws. Like, there's a lot.
There's a lot.
Like, we have to have, and again, I think that a lot of people say, well, there needs to be a reason for people to stay in the game and stuff. I get it. But I feel like this really disincentivizes people from being willing to push.
Yeah.
Somebody has to be the winner. And if no one goes for it, then I don't want to see an event where, and Lamora kind of talked about it, and even Logan, like a lot of people commented on it. I personally just don't want to see an event where somebody gets in the top cut and then you're like, congrats, you got there with a record of like 305 or whatever. What would it be? Like, there was... If this event was, what was this event? It was 7 rounds of Swiss, and then you would have had to win 2 more. So imagine if somebody...
There were 3 players in the top 16 that got there with a record of, and I'm assuming that this is before the last rounds.
Yeah.
But the final record was 1, 1, and 6.
See? Like, that's kind of, I don't know. I think that some people say that draws should be worth 0. I think you should lose a point.
Lose a point?
I think you lose a point. If no one's willing to go for it, everybody loses a point.
That's actually the hot take of this video, but maybe we will talk about that next week. So, I think it's gonna. I definitely think Blue Form is the best. I think it's because of the consistency, that inevitability factor, the fact that it plays like literally no bad cards, and it can just pivot whenever it wants to.
Yeah, I feel like this,
that's just my final thoughts on that. And it's going to take something very drastic to change things.
Yeah, I feel like this video went from is Blue Form the best to like what makes Blue Form the best, but. Yeah, it's the best. I mean, I went into this knowing that it was the best, but I just wanted to like probe discussion in the cEDH community. And I am actually excited to like share some of this stuff. I'll probably send this to y'all and send this to a couple other people. I may even post it in Critical's Discord just to show them like some of the stuff. Be like, hey, I just track this because I'm curious.
Yeah.
Here's some info. There you go. And just see what happens. But I think that it's cool.
Well, like I said earlier, let us know what you guys think about not just this discussion, but your thoughts on the format. Maybe what needs to be banned, your thoughts on these tournaments. I mean, I guess if we see more Blue Forms popping up and taking, all 16 spots from now till whenever the next TopDeck series begins, then I guess we will really see if we are correct in this and what our takes are. But yeah, let us know down in the comments below what you guys think on this topic, of whether or not it is actually the best. So With that being said, I don't have anything. I don't think Blake he has anything else. So, you know, if you like what we're doing and you want to support us, like and subscribe. And as always,
go play some cEDH. Just not blue form.
Yeah, fuck that deck. There's the outro.